Thank you, Stephen. I just want to start out this presentation with a very simple question. What about music makes people cry? We were talking in this Eagle Talks about perception. And what do you perceive about music that makes you want to cry or makes you want to feel sad? Why does this scene make you sad? This or maybe even this? Why does that make you sad? You can say to yourself, well, maybe it's death. Mufasa is dying. Or poor Rose. I don't know the other guy, I'm just saying, but poor Rose. So maybe you could say it's death, but then in that case, why does that make you sad? But this makes you a little bit less sad. Well, it really can be applied to anything. What about music makes people blank? It could be what makes people laugh, happy, angry. You see, this is a concept that I was obsessed with. What about music makes people blank? And I got obsessed with the concept of struggle. But not only struggle, but struggle and its relationship with triumph. And so, one event that I really resonated with, even though I wasn't alive at the time, was 9/11. And it wasn't because of just the horrific events of it, but how composers as a community came together to create a community where we can heal. A composer by the name of John Adams wrote a piece called On the Transmigration of Souls. And that was a response to the attacks on 9/11. And in this piece, he created a community, a space in which we could come together, find this common principle of grief, of struggle, but also use that as a catalyst for healing. And so I was obsessed with this. What about this piece made me feel grief, but at the same time made me feel closure, knowing that I can move on? And so this is why I became a composer. It's how do you write music like this? What about music makes people feel the way they feel? Well, I'm going to give you 4 steps today. Step 1, find inspiration, right? You can't write music unless you're inspired, right? So there's 4 main things that I feel inspires people. 1, the human condition. What makes us human? Secondly, life experiences. I wrote a piece recently called Fanfare and Celebration. And that was about my time as a Culver Military Academy cadet. I also wrote Culver the Musical as an experience on my time as a cadet. I struggled in the military system my first few weeks. I was the kid that would stand under the darkest spot in the room because my shoes were not shiny and I didn't want it to get gaped. But I took that and I used that as a way to transform my life into something that I can say I'm very proud to say that I've developed over the 4 years. Thirdly, messages that you want to convey as a composer. These messages are so powerful. I have a firm belief that music is not just constrained to purely incidental music. They can be used as a catalyst for change. And finally, musical personification. How do we use music to represent something else? Secondly, I map my thinking. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say we have a beginning of the piece, and let's say we have the end of the piece. All right, well, you can say, this is time, all right? And we can say, okay, from the beginning and the end, I want to map out the central motivic line. What does my melody want to sound like? All right, so I'll map that out. I'll do my thing. And I'll say, okay, secondly, tension. How tense do I want my piece to be? Right? There's a difference between this kind of weird, very major, very release chord versus it makes you kind of feel uneasy. Thirdly, textural density, right? Let's take Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, for example. The difference between versus and finally, the strength of tonality. And what I mean by that is home base. What makes you feel home? Let's take Twinkle Twinkle Little Star again. I use to construct a piece. Step 3, I organize my materials. Right? There's different things you can do. Right? You have your main melody. Right? Let's say I play a flute. I'll say, okay, here's my main melody. But that's not just it, or else that's just, very boring. Right? So I'll say, okay, I'll write out my other instruments. And step 4, I'll just write. So you see here, we have our main line. We might have a counter melody, something that interacts with the melody, something that's almost like a conversation. We might have a running passage up here. We might say, okay, I want this to feel more motion, right? Or we might have something ornamental. Here, I just want this to be a nice little bow on the top of this music. And then we have the bass line. This is what grounds the piece. This is what, makes the main tonality of the piece. You put that all together, these are just elements that you are using to construct your creativity, right? So that's something. Right? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Right? Yeah? And so I have a firm belief that music composition is not some kind of esoteric, weird, creative genius that you wake up at 2 o'clock and it can be, but it's not something that you kind of just wake up and you're like, oh, I've got this genius. No, music composition is like tools in a toolbox, right? You have your melody, right? You have maybe a rhythm. You have dynamics. Is it loud? Is it soft? Is it kind of soft, kind of loud? And then you have instrumentation. What instruments are playing this piece? And you could be thinking of yourself, well, that's, kind of simple. You might be thinking to yourself, no, that toolbox is lame, right? Such simple stuff. Anyone could do it. What makes it so special? But I would say to you, well, maybe more height representative, I would say to you, well, wait a minute. If our toolbox is so simple, solution, just get a bigger toolbox, right? So instead of just having melody, we'll have advanced harmony, right? We'll have things like textural intensity, right? How thick is the music? We'll have things like tension. What makes it? Does it make you sit up on the edge of your chair, or does it make you kind of sit back? And finally, tonality, right? How eerie does it feel? Do you feel like you're going to home base? So let's start with a melody and a rhythm, right? To start, all right? And then you can say, well, let's add a simple harmony. We know generally majors, happy, minor, sad, right? Right? Major, happy, minor, sad. Okay, well, let's add some chords in, right? Toolbox here. Maybe we can add some instrumentation to it, right? So we have our violin, and we'll have a piano, right? What are we doing? What are these different combinations that we're using? So let's put it all together. It's not something that you need to spend, developing your craft. Yes, it takes years of experience, but what pops in the head, what we call creative genius, what just pops up into our head at 2 a.m., is just these tools in the toolbox and how composers use their creativity to combine these different tools. Let's put it all together. No practice, no music, just tools in a toolbox and feeling what we feel. All right, let's give it a try. Using that same melody. Sadness, right? Minor. what instruments are playing. We have this big, bold melody now with accompaniment. But what if we just take the same thing and turn it into this?